So hopefully you can hear me. This is where it all started. Contrarian, senior, junior high school, elementary schools right up the road. Last year there was a lot of contentious things that were happening within our political society based upon some crazy disease that was running rampant. And no need to mention the name because we all know what it was. And our elected officials thought it was best for them to make medical decisions on our behalf. And that wound up being in a lot of unlawful threats, intimidation, coercion, duress, discrimination, false imprisonment. The list is on and on. And unfortunately, people aren't aware that when you consent to something that's unlawful, you can't scream foul to the lawfulness of it. You have to understand what it means to be free in the face of your constitutional rights, to have medical autonomy. I don't care what you put in your body, but you can't tell me what I must put in mine. So last year, a lot of concerned parents reached out to me based upon what the school board, school superintendent was imposing upon parents. And they felt they weren't being heard. And I went and I listened and I watched and I noticed that the parents were upset and their school board was ignoring them. Why? Because the school board doesn't have to listen to the parents. The community has to learn what their power is in order to be free. So I had shared with a couple of people that I wanted to learn more about what's happening with their children, those people that have IEPs or have special circumstances, that I want to advocate on your behalf, because your fear of retaliation by those people in that building is real. They will pull your child out of the classroom. They will put them in a room, a secure locked room, and socially isolate them and falsely imprison them and discriminate them. And they will do it under some crazy narrative that's defiance of authority. If someone in authority tells me to hop on one leg, I don't grant them that authority over my body to tell me what I must do. I am a law-abiding citizen. I know my constitutional rights and I stand on them. So when I came to this school back in October, I communicated to the school board in advance. And I said, listen, I respectfully want to come in and address you on behalf of concerned parents. And I want my constitutional rights to be free. I want my Fourth Amendment to be secure, and I want to be able to lawfully exercise my first. And please do not deprive me of my constitutional rights. In spite of that advance notice, I showed up in January of 2022. Showed up in January. No snow on the ground. It was a nice, chill winter afternoon, early evening. I walked into that building and I took a seat in the back. I listened to the school board go through their agenda, and it opened it up for the appropriate time for public comment. It was in the appropriate place in the meeting area in which they had selected, and I was going to communicate in a respectful, professional, and courteous manner. I have standing as a resident of this Commonwealth, as a resident of the county, as a resident of the United States. This institution receives federal money from my tax dollars, receives state money from my tax dollars, and receives local money because I transact inside of this community. I have business inside of this local community. So I have standing. But I don't need to state my standing. I don't need to tell people who I am. And I honestly don't need to answer any questions. And if you aren't familiar with this is something that I proudly stand and make other people aware that I have no obligation to talk to anyone. While you may be curious or you may be afraid, your fear and your curiosity doesn't trump my rights and my lawful exercise of those rights. I have no ill will. I have no ill intentions. I'm a God-fearing man. And I understand the role of authority in our society, but the only time authority has rule over me is when I break the law. I commit a crime, or a crime is in progress, or a crime is about to occur. So we went into that building and they silenced my ability to speak. I could not redress my grievances. But I was prepared for this behavior. I didn't desire it. I didn't want it. I had hoped they would honor their oath, but they trampled on that Constitution. They ripped it up and spit on it and said, you must follow our policy. I say, sir, policy is for employees. I'm not contracted with you to obey your policy. I'm a free, law-abiding citizen. and I'm going to stand on my rights, and I have the right to be secure in my person, paper, properties, and effects from unreasonable search, absent of a warrant, a probable cause, supported by articulable facts. So I don't need to surrender who I am. And I don't need to tell you where I reside. But on January, I chose that my message at that moment was more important than me standing on those rights. So I had a written statement that I wanted to read to them, but I had to forego that because the statement was based upon them honoring their oath to the Constitution. So I had to compartmentalize and push that statement on, and I took the opportunity to acquiesce to their threats that I can't exercise my First Amendment to speak unless I provided a name. And I provided a name, and I provided a municipality, and I spoke. And my speech is recorded, and how I spoke to them is recorded. I surrendered. After I was done my speech, I went and I sat down and I filled out a color of law violation notice. The deprivation of rights under color of law, color of authority. These people are representing that they are authority, school board officials, that they have the authority to demand certain things of me. And I said, no, you don't. And I said, you're violating 42 U.S.C. 1983. In addition, you're conspiring. All of you board members aren't stopping this unlawful behavior, so you are a part of the conspiracy to deprive me of my rights. That's 18 U.S.C. 241 and 18 U.S.C. 242. And I presented them this document, a color of law violation notice. And I wrote all of their names, and I signed my name as defendant. And I said, you either cease and desist from deprivation of rights under color of this authority, or I'm going to take the next steps as directed by the Supreme Court. Now, I let time go by. Back in February, I attempted again, but that didn't work too well, and I came back in March. When I came in March, the first time I came in March, the meeting had been canceled because the Chester County detectives had said that my exercise of free speech is criminal in nature. They have no evidence that supports that. It's all narrative. It's all cop-splaining. They have no evidence that I'm going to commit a crime. I'm a law-abiding citizen. My speech cannot be converted into a crime. I don't use profanity. I don't call people out personally. I just speak truth. So that meeting was canceled, but when I was leaving this parking lot and driving up that road, a state trooper followed me. And I went all the way up to the road, and there's an intersection, not an intersection, there's a road off to the right. I put on my traffic indication device and I turned off that road, and he lit me up with his emergency lights. And he unlawfully, detained me, but understand legal speech. I was arrested. My movement was arrested. I was not free to go. He stopped me because of an emergency. He approached me. I didn't even open my window, and he's talking to me through my window. And he asks me for license, registration, and proof of insurance. I said, what traffic violation did I commit? Oh, I'm detaining you for an investigative detention. You don't have the authority to detain me for an investigation. What crime did I commit to warrant you to stop me? Well, he kept, get out of the car, sir. So I understand the Supreme Court says that a law enforcement has the right for their safety to remove you from your car. So he's asking me to give up my safety for the benefit of his safety. So what I did, I'm not going to argue with him. There's no way to argue on the side of the road with somebody who's representing authority. They have so many protections through qualified immunity. They can lie to you. They can assault you. They can put you in pain compliance torture devices and handcuff you of shackles of slavery. They could throw you in a car and hotbox you. They can transport you down to the station, and at the end of the day, they will arrest you and book you for something of impeding governmental operations, obstruction of justice, resisting arrest with no violence. They'll trump up whatever they want. But I handled that interaction that I knew I needed to get out of the car. So what I did, I secured my car, put my emergency lights on. At the time of the stop, my emergency lights were on. I had the emergency brake on, put my car in neutral. I took my phone, activated it, and stuck it into my pocket with the camera facing out. And we had a conversation. He said, I'm being detained for investigation. I said, of what crime? Potential trespass. From public property? From public property? Nobody's issued me a trespassing warning from public property, because in order to do that, you have to have a crime. I don't commit crimes. Well, can I have your driver's license? No, I haven't committed a crime. You can ask all you want, but I have no obligation to give it to you. I informed him he has a limited period of time which this unlawful action can continue before it becomes a real problem inside the federal court, because this was a deprivation of rights under color of law, 42 U.S.C. 1983. But Officer Kochka wasn't so concerned about that, because he knew his chain of command and his blue line of protection will protect him from liability, from financial expense, when acting in his color of law. He knows that most cases will not pierce qualified immunity, and that the taxpayers will pay for his error in judgment and misuse of his authority. They know this. They're not equipped to deal with a citizen such as myself, who will respectfully and professionally stand on my Constitution and say, no, I'm not here to assist you in your investigation. If you want me to answer questions, I'm not going to do so without the presence of my attorney. I'm just going to just do what you need to do. He threatened to take me into custody. And I said, absolutely. You have the power to unlawfully put handcuffs on me and put me in this car and kidnap me. You can absolutely do those unlawful things against me. And you can unlawfully fingerprint me, and you can unlawfully create some fabrication of charges. Absolutely, you have the power to do that. But I'm warning you, you're doing this all under color of law because you have no articulable evidence of a criminal act. And your allegation that I've been trespassed from public property, the only ability to be trespassed from public property is if I've committed a crime is in progress, or a crime is about to occur. None of that happened. The next time I came back was for the active school meeting. And I had my written statement prepared again. And I waited for the appropriate time, place, and manner. Check this out, what's coming up behind me. And I tried to speak again, and they demanded I surrender my fourth and in order to exercise my first. And I said, listen, you can't do this. Well, you need to follow our policy. And what happened was they converted my constitutional right into causing a disturbance. My desire to just be free in my Fourth Amendment right, to exercise my first, that they're willing to die on that hill and convert it into causing a disturbance. Murdoch versus Pennsylvania. You cannot convert a constitutionally protected right into a criminal act. And I let them know that. I let them know that way in advance. I've well documented this, but they did it anyway. So as I was attempting to be free in my speech, I kept standing on it, and they kept escalating. And I finally said, you guys are unreasonable. I am going to get up and go call the police and place you under citizen's arrest for deprivation of rights under color of law. And as I was getting up and as I was speaking, Officer Kochka came in with another officer. And they had personally addressed me, because they were able to dox me, personally addressed me and said to, sir, you need to leave. They have asked you to leave. Well, first of all, they didn't ask me to leave, so that is a false statement. But they said I need to leave. And my response was, what will happen if I choose not to leave? Trooper Kochka said, you will be arrested for criminal trespass after warning. I said, great. What crime did I commit? What crime did I commit to be trespassed from public property? And they have no crime. They didn't even document this encounter. But he used his color of law to threaten me off the property with 3 other officers to get off the property. And did I want to get a criminal trespass charge? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I wanted to get the probable cause affidavit that supported the threat of criminal trespass and the threat of arrest. I wanted to get that. I wanted to get the sworn affidavit based upon the reporting party and what crime they alleged that I committed in order to be asked to even leave that property. None exists. No document exists. it's rather interesting that while I would hope that an officer would attempt to approach me, it appears that they are a little gun shy at the moment, and that I am prepared. I showed my shirt. But what I have done based upon the actions of Trooper Kochka, the school board, the school superintendent, the local state police, the local chiefs of police, the Chester County detectives, the district attorney of Chester County, in addition to some additional chain of command inside of the state police hierarchy, their attorneys in filing false information and public records requests, along with the Attorney General's office. I have a list of 87 defendants. I had never wanted to go to federal court. It wasn't my desire. I just wanted them to be law-abiding, honoring their oath, to advocate on behalf of the people that elected them into office. But that's not important to them. Their ideology, their camaraderie of those that are inside that building, sold out to the revenue streams that are fueling them, to execute demands from the government that are conditioned upon money. They have no problem violating, and they will continue to violate. The list of their violations are incredibly long. They are writing policies every single day which are deprivation of rights, and every parent is consenting to it. Every one of them. They're not standing up for their rights. So when you put your kid in that school, don't be angry for the product that is being produced. Don't be angry that something that happened in Loudoun County can happen right here. Don't be angry. It's your silence and your apathy and complacency that will allow this to continue. And while it may not be you personally, your child is feeling it. The bullying that happens behind those closed doors. You know what I'm doing right now is a First Amendment protected activity. It's called freedom of the press. I can record anything I see in public, and I am capable of distributing it and disseminating my message to anybody that's interested under the free press. There is no credentials that are required for free press. I'm smart, that I have a press badge, and it has some words on the back of it. And that QR code is a way of get away from me. I have no obligation to talk to you. Go to this QR code and leave me alone. And on the back it says, I have the right to remain silent. I am on public property. I am free press. My eyes cannot trespass. Absent of being lawfully arrested, I am not obligated to present identification. That's what they get. So I'm going to say whatever I gosh darn please in the public domain, and I'm allowed to record whatever my eyes can see to disseminate to others. Will your children, when they walk into that building, they're being threatened, coerced, intimidated based upon policy, which the only way that policy is enforceable is if you consent to give that policy authority over you and your children. So free press is the right for you to go into that building and record everything that those public servants are doing. Everything. Except for in the bathroom or the locker room. But your child can audio and video record because that is a public place. The only basis in which you cannot record in there is based upon your consent to something that's unlawful. But when you sign that agreement, when you sign those stacks of papers to let your kids in, you have chosen that the Constitution dies at those front doors. That's your choice. The Constitution, when you put your child inside that door, when you drive on that property, that's a constitutional free zone. And it's all based upon your consent and compliance. So I just wanted to do another narration. We'll see how this goes.